The story starts with the main character, Aram, who is a super poor homeless teenager who lives a simple life, because Aram does not have a permanent place to live and often experiences hunger because he does not have money to buy food. In addition, even though Aram is a homeless person, he never complains about his life due to the fact that he always tries to be strong and patient with the life he is living. Apart from Aram being a strong person, it turns out that he is also a very kind person to others, especially to the poor. Because of his good attitude, sometimes he also has to get involved in fights with mass organizations that like to oppress weak people. However, even so, Aram always managed to face the pretentious person because of his very great fighting ability. Then shows the ability of Aram, who is trying to help a village from the attack of the Dark Lord's army, which is now attacking the village. At first, Aram fought alone against the Dark Lord's army. However, news of the attack on the village reached the ears of two groups of volunteers who had just returned from losing their battle against the Demon Lord, and happened to pass by the village. The first group was the group led by a knight who was greatly admired by the nobles named Yuri, while the other group is led by a princess of a royal noble named Juliana. Even though Aram had the help of these two groups, they still couldn't win the battle because the army they were fighting was an army sent by the Dark Lord, who was notoriously dangerous. Because of the difficulties they faced, Aram finally made a decision to use his hidden powers to help win the battle. Until finally, thanks to the hard work of Aram and two groups of knights, they won the battle. Long story short, in the evening, because that day Aram still didn't get food, he ended up eating together with Yuri's group and also Juliana. While the group was enjoying their meal, something suddenly happened that made Aram curious. One member of Yuri's group, Fina, turns out to be carrying a divine book that has the ability to know the state of the world. The book is called Chain Chronicle. Each page of the book would continue to blacken according to the territory controlled by the Dark Lord, and every time that happened there would be a large amount of energy escaping from the book. There were several conversations between the two groups of heroes and Aram about the Chain Chronicle until finally Aram found out about a little elf named Parika. The fairy is a very valuable figure to make a world full of hope in the future. In addition, Aram also knows about Yuri and his group's current goal to find the whereabouts of the elf. It was late at night and Aram was lost in his own thoughts. Not long after, Yuri approached Aram and invited him to join the group. At first Aram refused the offer. However, because Yuri kept on persuading him, he finally agreed. The next morning, the group set out to save a town belonging to the Juliana Kingdom, which was now under attack by the Dark Lord's army. But in the midst of the battle, there was an argument between Aram and a member of Juliana's group named Burkhard, because Burkhard felt that Aram fought while absorbing what he had. As a result of the quarrel, Aram decided to stop helping Yuri and Juliana's group to choose to leave the battle. Sometime after Aram's departure, both groups had difficulty fighting the dark forces and were constantly cornered. Finally, because Aram was basically a good person and could not bear to leave the group, he decided to return to help them, and the group succeeded in defeating the Dark Lord's army that was attacking the city. Long story short, in the afternoon Aram together with Yuri and Juliana's group formed an alliance to overthrow the Dark Lord with the intention that this world would be safe again and free from the madness of the Dark Lord's troops. The next morning, starving Aram was walking around the market and heard the screams of a woman being held hostage by a man. Aram, who heard the screams, immediately ran and immediately helped, and managed to save the woman. After Aram's heroic actions ended, suddenly an arms dealer named Dusty approached and gave him a gift in the form of a very good knife. In the afternoon, while Aram was practicing with his new weapon, suddenly Burkhard came and immediately accused him of stealing the new knife. However, Aram, who did not accept the accusations, tried to explain, resulting in an argument with Burkhard. Then not long after, in the midst of their argument, suddenly Juliana came with Yuri, and one of her group members immediately asked about the cause of their quarrel. Hearing Juliana's question, Burkhard immediately explained his accusations to Aram. Right after Burkhard explained his accusation, suddenly Dusty came to explain everything to Juliana and the others about the knife that had been given to Aram. The defense given by Dusty made the accusations received by Aram finally come to an end. The next morning, Aram and Yuri's group were making preparations to travel to the place of a group of magicians led by 3 of Yuri's acquaintances named Dilma, Fatima, and Melchior. The reason they went to that place was none other than because Yuri wanted to meet Fatima and ask for her help in finding out the location of Parika's whereabouts, because Fatima herself was a magician who had great abilities in tracking someone's whereabouts. During the preparations, Burkhard also joined Yuri's group journey. It happened because of Juliana's request. Besides Burkhard, it turns out that there are 2 other people who also join the group's journey. The first is a woman who is a powerful magician named Aludra, while the other is a formidable knight named Vorg. After their preparations were complete, finally Aram, Yuri, and the people who had just joined the group started their journey towards their destination. At the beginning of the journey, the people who are members of the group really enjoy it, until one day there is an incident that makes Aram and the others have to save Burkhard, who is being invited by the Dark Lord's subordinate named Irenas, so that Burkhard also becomes the Dark Lord's subordinate. However, after struggling to save Burkhard, their efforts ended in vain because Burkhard instead accepted Irenas' invitation and immediately tried to fight Yuri and Aram's group. Satisfied with their resistance, the Dark Lord retreated, taking Burkhard with them. Knowing Burkhard's retreat, they certainly couldn't do anything about it and chose to contact and inform Juliana via a communication device about the condition of Burkhard, who was now the Dark Lord's subordinate. After contacting Juliana, the group finally decided to continue the journey and arrived at their destination the next day. However, when they just arrived, they found themselves greeted by Dilma's subordinates, Fatima, and Melchior. After being engrossed in a power struggle, Fatima suddenly stopped their fight and immediately invited the troops to enter her residence. After arriving inside, without further ado, Yuri immediately asked about Parika's condition to Fatima, who is known as an ascetic of fate or a witch who knows many things. However, Fatima, who heard Yuri's question, couldn't do much because she didn't know much about Parika. In addition, Fatima also asked Yuri that Yuri and his group immediately go to a very important location. The location was named the Labyrinth Border. Hearing Fatima's request, Yuri finally agreed to this and immediately made preparations to go to the location that was intended by Fatima. While on the other hand, Aludra and Vorg decided not to join Yuri's group and chose to wait at the residence of the magicians. While making preparations, Aram was suddenly surprised by the 5 subordinates of Melchior who were asked to accompany the group, which Fatima told him. Long story short, after a long time of preparation, they finally set off. On the way, Aram also accidentally stumbled upon a strange animal that was being targeted by the Dark Lord. It is named after its shape, namely Furball. The Dark Army was successfully annihilated by a subordinate of Melchior. However, due to the enormity of the war, the snow suddenly avalanched and the group split into 2, the first the group of Aram and Yuri and their strange beasts, and the second the group of Melchior's subordinates and Yuri's subordinates. On the other hand, Aram and Yuri, who were stuck in the extreme weather, couldn't do much. They chose to wait and were picked up by the expedition group until finally, with the help they got through Fatima's teacher named Baltazari, Aram and Yuri were found again. After Yuri and Aram were found, they decided to continue their journey to their destination. After a few days in that place and finding the place in good condition, the group finally decided to leave that place to continue the journey to a fairy island to meet someone named Yggdra and ask for her help in tracking down Parika. But again, their journey did not go smoothly. They are confronted by someone named Shuza and his group who aim to take the Chain Chronicle from Fina. An inevitable battle ensued between the group led by Yuri and the Shuza group who wanted the Chain Chronicle. The battle was fierce enough that in the end the Chain Chronicle was captured by Shuza. At the same time, suddenly Irenas came, who brought the Dark Army and made the battle even more chaotic. The 3 groups fought in one battle. During the battle, it turned out that Irenas kept teasing Yuri and intended to make him a subordinate of the Dark Lord. Yuri, who didn't want it, tried desperately to survive the influence until finally there was an incident that made him accidentally stab one of its members, and made him lose consciousness, and was successfully influenced by Irenas and invited to become a subordinate of the Dark Lord. The battle from three sides was still continuing until finally Irenas decided to withdraw by bringing Yuri to his base. In the evening, Aram goes to Shuza and asks him to return the Chain Chronicle so that the two of them get into an argument. Even though Aram had tried, Shuza still didn't want to return it. On the next day, Aram with Furball and Fina decided their journey to Fairy Island. However, that same morning their group had to be separated again because one of the members who had previously been stabbed by Yuri suffered very serious injuries and had to be taken immediately for treatment. Meanwhile, the subordinates previously assigned by Melchior to assist the expedition finally chose to return because they wanted to report what had happened to Yuri. When they arrived at the place, they immediately tried to meet Yggdra. However, they were blocked by Yuri and the Dark Army, who suddenly appeared in front of them. Aram gets help from two people named Gilbert and Vienta, who intend to hold Yuri there and let Aram go to immediately meet Yggdra. After successfully meeting her, Yggdra hastily opened her Chain Chronicle and immediately brought Aram and Fina into the Chronicle dimension. In that dimension, Aram meets Baltazari and asks for his help in order to have the power to defeat the Dark Lord. Not long after that, Aram returned to the place where Fairy Island was, and unexpectedly Yggdra finally managed to track down Parika, who was in the Chain Chronicle. Time has passed again since Aram met Yggdra. Now, Aram has left the Fairy Island and is in a kingdom led by a beautiful noble who is also Yuri's acquaintance named Ashrina. Aram came to the kingdom with Fina and the Furball found on the previous expedition with the intention of making an alliance. In that kingdom, Aram and the royal army devised a plan to raise the dragon with great power, and wanted to use the dragon to subdue the Dark Lord. However, unexpectedly they were suddenly surprised by the guard, who informed that Juliana's group would start a big war with Shuza's troops. Hearing this, the Ashrina kingdom immediately intervened and the two sides could make peace by reaching an agreement in negotiations. Something surprising happened again. Suddenly Irenas came in the middle of negotiating with the Dark Army and immediately attacked both sides blindly. Getting such a sudden attack, finally Juliana and Shuza worked together to destroy the Dark Army. On the other hand, Aram, who saw the incident, could not stay silent and chose to plunge into the battlefield. Meanwhile, Fina chooses to go with Ashrina's subordinate, Farah, to carry out a previously designed plan to resurrect the dragon. The war continued until Fina finally managed to resurrect the dragon, which turned out to be the furball that Aram had been carrying with him wherever he went. The battle ended and was won by the Arameans, who cooperated with the rest of the group, including Melchior's subordinates, who came to help. After the battle ended, Shuza also gave up Chain Chronicle back into the hands of its owner, who was none other than Fina. Meanwhile, Juliana meets Aram and decides to form an alliance with him to form an army against the Dark Lord, because she now greatly admires and recognizes Aram's power to destroy the Dark Lord. The next few days, Aram managed to gather strong alliances, including the magicians. They planned to open the barrier of the Dark Lord's kingdom with the intention that the resistance forces could attack the kingdom that was hiding behind the Black Shadows. However, the plan had to be interrupted again by the arrival of Burkhard, and the battle was inevitable until Fina was unwittingly captured and brought by Burkhard. Meanwhile, the plan of the Resistance Alliance to open the gate was finally carried out. Many parties were involved in this attack, starting from the group of Juliana, Ashrina, Dusty, and without exception Shuza, who came and joined the Great War. The war lasted long enough, until finally the war was won by Aram and all his allies. The Dark Lord was defeated thanks to the help of the dragon and Yuri, whose condition returned to normal. After the defeat of the troops and the Dark Lord, the world is finally at peace again, and the story ends very beautifully. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.